Hello, 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 and welcome everyone to our 65th Techspressionism Virtual Salon. I am your moderator this evening, or morning, or late evening, wherever you're at in the world, for the salon. Joining me is a slew of wonderful seasoned artists and newer artists like myself. Today's topic is revolution, which I think that's been on a lot of people's minds for quite a bit in a lot of capacities, especially in this country, the United States, where many of us are based, but also kind of around the world. There's kind of unrest and a lot of change that needs to happen in a lot of areas of the world, a lot of different countries. And revolution is kind of the natural upshot of that. It's when people kind of reach the tipping point and say, enough is enough, let's do something about it. Or when people just decide, hey, the way things currently are just needs to be shaken up a bit, see where it goes. And that's definitely happened in the art world several times over. Kind of the spirit of what we do here with Techspressionism. Abstract expressionism was kind of more or less a revolution in terms of kind of deviating from, abstract art in general was a deviation from realism and, that kind of stuff. That being said, if you are new here, the general format is that, we have presenters that will talk about their work or whatever themes are related. I'm sorry, the work that relates to the current theme that they have going on, and we'll have a little discussion about that. And we'll move on to the next presenter and so on and so forth until we're talked each other to death. All right. I asked you that while the presentations are going on, that please keep yourself muted so that you're not interrupting the presenter as they're talking. If you would like to present, if you're in the chat currently, please do raise your hand. Use the little Zoom emoji down here for reactions, and we will get to you in order of hands being raised. At present, we have 3. Not sure if that's going to change, but we'll see. Yeah, and that being said, are we all ready to go? Questions, comments, concerns before we get started? No?
It looks like everyone's muted at this point, but if you're not and you're not presenting, if you could please mute yourself, that'd be most appreciated. Also, the recording generally stops at around 7. We'll probably stop around 7:05 because we started 5 minutes late, as is the tradition. And after the recording ends, we will have a community building session / advisory board / after party where we usually pick the topic for the next salon. So all are welcome.
Yeah. All right. And with that being said, I guess we can go ahead and get started. Tommy, I believe you had your hand up first. Are you ready or distracted? Looks like you're distracted.
I don't know. Can you hear me? Is my mic okay? Awesome. Yep. Well, thanks, Davo. This is awesome. 65. What a number. What a revolution, right? Like 1965 was right before that sort of revolutionary period. I don't know, just sort of pre-associating here. I was thinking about revolutions in terms of time, right? This sort of idea of both the cycles, the revolving of things, and also, the change that's inherent in these revolutions, these changes that we witness, if you will. So that's, I think, what I'm thinking about in my work, where I'm trying to pin Zoom. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn around and walk closely to these pictures a little bit. So here, we are at DeTroy studio. Sungjan, Lee, and I are here. Hi. In this beautiful galleries space, hanging 6 kind of large prints. You can't see, I think, the whole of this, but the idea is, instead of having a single moment of time that photography classically describes, the revolution that I'm describing, I need to walk closer, I'm trying to pinch to zoom again, is describing many moments of time. So taking that revolution of time and repeating it back on itself and comparing it to the moment before. seeing what's changed and drawing our attention to that in ways that, I don't know, allow us to spend time watching it unfold. So these prints are on a variety of fabrics. I'm going to torture you and touch silk. If people aren't a sort of feeling of things, but I'm really into the fabrics that we have hanging here, and we hung them so that the fabric quality is kind of evident in there. And maybe the most fabric is this one, and maybe this really is about revolutions of what I'm talking about, of the sun and the moon and the planets. Here, this is photographs of a sun blurring shine, a play at Hudson Guild Theater. And yeah, it's a couple of moments where these actors were walking around carrying these wild props. And you get to see the same person a couple of times as they revolved. I'm gonna now touch this lovely velour and tempt you to come to 1010 44th Avenue when you're, and Jaime is coming on Saturday, so join him. Here's the last print that I'm gonna show you. This is on leatherette. This is a nice contrast to the velour. So anyway, the revolution I'm describing, Davo, I guess, is changing how we think about what the photograph describes, and how the medium has changed, what the message is, if you will, right? And that's a major revolution in digital versus analog, or compared to analog, not versus, I think we're still undergoing that revolution, AI, et cetera, just that next step of that. Well, thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And if I was in New York, I would totally be down to come up there and see things. But unfortunately, I'm in plain old Richmond, Virginia. Well, it's not so plain, but it's not as happening.
Right? Just hop on the train.
I was thinking about it, actually. Not this week, but eventually. But thank you so much, Sami. All right. Does anyone have any questions, comments, praise? We do that here still, I believe, right?
I do. I have first of great praise. I love your work, Tommy. And you mentioned several different kinds of fabric. Do you choose the fabric to fit the image or vice versa? How do you decide what fabric?
Thank you, Sherry. That's a fantastic question. Well, I did choose the fabric specifically of the play images, the leatherette and the velour, specifically for those pictures, because I thought they expressed that sensibility the play was talking about. The silks and cottons, I'm kind of experimenting with right now, sort of trying to find printing material that gives a certain fabric sense that holds enough light, has a little bit of translucency. So these are all experiments right now. So the answer is kind of no, I haven't yet really started matching images to fabrics, but that's something I'm thinking about. And also, just to continue, I am going to use these as more entries on the spreadsheet that I was sharing, and I will continue to share, and maybe we'll figure out another place to share that documentation of printing resources, places that I've printed and the prices and the quality and my experience. So yeah, I'm happy to share them.
All right, thank you, Sherry. Anybody else? Also, if you don't feel like talking, you can always go to the chat box and put your questions and comments there, because that's what it's there for.
Hey, Tommy, when you get a chance, shoot me a link to that spreadsheet and I'll add it to the resources page on the Techspressionism site.
Great, I'll do that, Colin. Thanks.
I have a question for Tommy.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm curious about the space and the other people who are showing in the space. Does Sungjin have work up?
Yeah, right now like 3 people, like artists showing their works. So actually I'm organizer here, and I always looking for like anyone to show any kind of work, like like it's like a gallery and like share studio. So like it's more like 2 or 3 artists like gonna come to show more, and we're gonna like trying to having like a lot of like event like game party and like group tours like has fun like DJ party or whatever. Like it's we're gonna do like maybe like digital and analog like same Techspressionism like concept like event like doing basically local like New York. But like I don't know. Like maybe it's gonna be more future. It's gonna be more fun place. I'm trying to make.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. So anyone to want to use this studio, just let me know or let me know.
Yeah, I'll put it in your website right here in the chat, Renata. I think you could find everything about Digiana.
Yeah.
DigianaGroup.com. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
I have a question for Tommy. Tommy, how do you print up the material, these prints that you do with the materials? How do you print that up? Hello?
So these are printed by an outfit called Bags of Love.
Oh.
Love.com. They're in the UK, and I found them. I was doing a lot of research trying to find, good printers of fabric. And actually, I don't know if Talia Lovin's on today, but she's been posting some really extraordinary looking fabric prints generated on Long Island. So there might be somebody with the same technology, this direct to fabric, high resolution printing technology that Bags of Love has. It's a, some, I don't know, $100,000 printer or $200,000, whatever it is, right? We might have one more locally than Bags of Love. They just had a great swatch sample set they sent out, and I was tempted to just, try as many as I could. I had a grant to fund, the printing. So, this is all for science.
Wow.
Yeah, Tommy. Tommy.
It must.
Yeah.
I mean, in looking at them in reality, if I was actually there, I would probably want to touch them also. Yeah. Well.
Yeah, Tommy.
That's unique.
Yeah.
Tommy, what time is the best time to visit your gallery?
Oh yeah,
Saturday.
like in Saturday, anytime is good. Basically.
Anytime? In the afternoon, I will stop by there.
Yeah, sure.
Saturday afternoon, see her.
Great.
I'll try to come by too. My
Thank
daughter has a play.
Thank you.
Or before.
I have a question for Tommy. So was there like a certain moment when you started incorporating code into your photographic practice? Because I know your images are based on Python scripts, right, that you wrote. And I'm curious, how that transition happened. Like, what did you have an interest in coding prior to starting to work with these automated digital photo collage ideas?
I resisted learning to code for as long as I could. And then I had a show that I was offered a show in 2013. And that coincided with, I think, the release of the Raspberry Pi. It was maybe a year before that. And there's a lot of community support for Python as a programming language. I had conceptualized this idea, I'd written the pseudocode 10 years earlier, 2004 or 5, in graduate school. I actually did a project for a public art class with Cynthia Carlson, one of the great, anyway, Queens College. And the idea sat until 2013. I decided just to do it. I read a 900-page book on Python and started to code. I was sort of like, oh, okay, I got to do it. All those who coded were too busy, inevitably, right? So, it was I learned through making this project, and actually I have a variety of versions of the automated digital photo collage Python code up on GitHub. For anybody who's interested, you're welcome to. And I know Lee Schneiberg, I think has actually forked the code and been using it himself and doing all sorts of interesting things with it. So yeah, the code, is 200 lines long, so it's not very big, and it's the only program I've written. I don't consider myself a programmer. I consider myself a photographer using code to photograph. the technology of digital photography. You know, underlying that is code. So I feel, you know, like I'm in the dark room of the digital, just where I like to be. I'll keep talking, everybody. Now, who's next? Jeez.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Feel like an artist, you know, sort of in their element. Who's? Does there's another question? I'm sorry. I see Susan's hand is up, so I'm going to mute here.
Susan is actually in the queue to be a presenter, so I don't think she has any questions for you, but I could be wrong. Oh, see, there you go. All right, if that's going to be it for Tommy, I think we can move right along to our next presenter. So thank you so much, Tommy, and thank you for your time. All right, and next up we have Cheryl.
I have a heater guy coming today. He just rang the door. So take someone else, okay?
Oh, all right. I will definitely keep you in mind. All right, that means Susan, you're up.
Okay. So I have I associated in my mind the acts of aggression with and response to be related to revolution. And because I believe that that's partly what happens in society, that I like to see everybody, we have people come towards us aggressively and we respond, and sometimes that leads to people revolting or responding to the acts of aggression. And so I'm going to share my screen because I had some work I created a while ago, not super long, but within a couple of years, whenever the aggression towards Ukraine happened. And I created these pieces in that period of time to like a reaction of my own feelings and trying to comprehend what was happening. So I'm going to attempt to show those. So I'm assuming everything's going all right and that you can see the work I did. What happened is, in my experience, was I noticed that there was the iconic image of the sunflower, and I remembered that there were images that I had taken from a local school community garden. So I looked for those and pulled those out of my files, my photo files, and I created this piece. And during that time, I was also starting to learn more about video editing, and I created this. Let's see if I can make it sense.
Time stops for no one. Mother Nature.
I don't know if you can see that. I was again using older imagery that had some flowers associated with it.
Way before we
from my Portrait of a Woman series, and I dedicated that
intervention to place
and in a homage to Ukraine. So that I did that last year. And then this was the one that I thought was the most successful. Okay, I'm trying to get back. Okay, I'm back.
All right, welcome back. I was actually muted and didn't realize it still.
I'm not, I can't tell if you could hear the sound, but
Yeah, the sound's definitely
Okay,
coming
good.
through.
yeah, it's very muted on my iPad, so it's hard to tell. Anyway, those are the pieces that I made that I thought related to the topic. And because I was affected in terms of what was happening. And I'm once again glad for the salon, because it gives me an opportunity to look into my work that I've done that I haven't looked at in a while, and sort of relive that, have a new experience, see where I was about a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, and understand how, have a perspective to what I'm doing now, because I'm using video and editing a lot in my work. And in terms of what editing, all the work I make is has its first is photographic based. It has its first place starts with the iPhone image. Everything, oops, my calendar's alerting me. Starts with an iPhone image, and then I manipulate that on my iPad, usually, as you can see with the first sunflower. And then currently I'm putting most everything into a video editing in some way, like Motion Leap or Video Leap or CapCut, or those are my main tools that I'm using. And I have those pieces I have been, they haven't been selected yet. The Ukraine one, it's kind of dated, but I still think it has relevance. So, okay, I think that's it. Unless people have some questions, let me just see if yeah, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Susan. All right, does anyone have any questions, comments, or praise for Susan? I'm sure you do. Who wants to be first? Some now, don't be shy. I know well, there's a bunch of introverts in here, because that's most of us, but it's all right. It's okay. People don't bite. I'll get to the chat real quick. Cynthia did say it was a wonderful tribute to Ukraine. Oh, sorry, we have two Cynthias. The D Donato said that.
Thanks, Cynthia.
I wanted to say one other thing too. I know, Susan, how much you use nature and florals to convey your feelings. And I think you did a beautiful job with doing that again for Ukraine. Certainly the symbolism of the flower, the sunflower is there. And I think that final piece is very successful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, there's a Ukrainian, before the pandemic, in near where I live, there's a very strong Ukrainian community that when I was a kind of more regular photographer and doing documentation and coverage, journalistic coverage, I went to the celebration more than once, and always was so drawn to the costuming and the floral headdresses and the folk dancing and singing mostly. And so I'm remembering that when I think about Ukraine. Yeah. So it's not revolt exactly. They weren't revolting, but they kind of have to now.
Something like that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? All right, well, I'm just going to imagine that most people are in their own heads right now. That's why they're not saying anything. But it's okay. It's fine. But thank you so much for your presentation, Susan. Appreciate it. And your art is as wonderful as ever. All right. It looks like Cheryl has come back. Are you ready to present now, or should we wait a little bit? Oh, you're still muted, by the way. Still muted, unfortunately.
I'm muted. I'm talking to myself. Well,
Oh.
I need that information. Okay, so let's see what happens when I share content.
All right.
Okay. Photos. That would help. And oh, here it is. Can you see it?
Yes.
It's not very good, but
That's a subjective feeling.
It's my first attempt on Procreate. I've only been through one lesson and half of another. I need to watch them about 4 or 5 times before I can understand them. And this explain this thing. I'm learning the layers, and I made a mistake already and erased something I didn't want to erase. So now every single thing that I do gets on its own layer. And so that's my thing. Now, the other thing is that I don't know enough about it to do what I want it to do. But anyway, it's fun trying, and I'll learn it eventually, I guess.
Yeah,
But
I mean, some of us have been at this for years, and some of us aren't actually all that tech savvy. I know Roz here, she is self-proclaimed low tech, though she does try, and to great success because she just keep trying. But yeah, I mean, it's always a learning experience. You got to get started somewhere.
Yeah, I did have a long time ago. I had a couple of classes in animation, but I didn't get a chance to really develop it. Plus the fact that I'm also into analog painting, and I can't do one over the other. I'm like Picasso. I have to do it all. But I mean, I've limited, because I used to do printmaking. I used to do etching, lithography, monoprint, all that. But I've kind of not done that lately, and I'm not, interested right now. There's a lot of things you can do, but I get a focus somehow. And it's hard for me because I'm naturally, I guess I'm ADD, and it's really hard. It's always, the next new thing. I want it. I have to have it.
Shiny object syndrome. We call it that.
Yeah, exactly. Glitter. I love it. Well, let me just say about this crazy mess of a thing here is it's trying to be a broken city in Ukraine, and this gray thing that you're looking at is supposed to be a truck, and it has the word 200 means, I don't know what exactly it means or how they came about this, but this is the truck that brings the bodies back to the place that they're going to be buried. They bury everybody there. And it just I don't know, it just grabbed my heart, that whole thing. And of course you see the flags. Well, the flags are what I want the flags to be. Is there was a day a while ago, I guess maybe this month, where I think it was the anniversary, or was it February? Can't remember now. They had the anniversary of the first day of the war, and a lot of cities put the flag over some of their monuments. And I really didn't have very good luck except for the Paris down there, in the lower right, getting them, but I wanted them to be in the flag. So that's something I have to learn. And anyway, that's my thing. There's nothing, I have nothing else about that, but I don't know. I see war as revolution, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is a revolution. It's, you know, they're trying to make Ukraine communist, and Ukraine is trying to be free. That's kind of two ideas against each other.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it was my idea to come up with the war thing, and then it evolved into a revolution. So
They are very much, I wouldn't even say two sides of the same coin, but the coin kind of has revolution and conflict kind of inherent in it.
yeah. Okay, well, I'll stop sharing so the next person can go.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Cheryl.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
And keep up the work with practice and everything. You'll get to where you want to be. You just have to keep going.
Yeah.
All right. Does anyone have any questions or comments, praise for Cheryl? Yes, no, maybe so. Cynthia, the other Cynthia that we have, Cynthia Beth Rubin, she says great depth in that image. Also, she's waving at you. Oh, this is also kind of a general note to everyone. The tools that we use, it's a perpetual learning process. You never stop learning. Like you keep going. There is a good enough, but you're always trying to be better than that good enough, I feel, or at least that's for me anyway. But I think that speaks to a lot of other people as well, where you're in a constant state of progression and growth and even change with your practice in art. So yeah. So with Cheryl, you're transitioning to more digital mediums. That's great, and I'm rooting for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a lot of other digital things, but I'll show them at another time.
Gotcha.
Because they don't relate to the subject.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right. Moving right along. Jaime, did you have a question, or were you wanting to present? Also, you're currently muted.
Yeah, I was just talking to Tommy because I wanted to visit his gallery, and because I couldn't interact, so that was the bottom line. But,
okay, got it.
Other than that, no. I'm planning to have next time something, but I'm not ready yet.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks a bunch. Colin, did you want to present? Your hand is up.
Yeah, I thought, it seems a little bit like slim pickings here tonight.
I mean, I could go next.
I figure I dug something out from the archives that I think kind of fits the bill. Let me just share my screen here. Actually, you know what? I need to share the audio too. Hang on a second. Share sound. Okay. Can you see like a browser with YouTube on it?
I can see the YouTube.
Okay, cool. So this is a video piece that I made back in 2006. The description is an audio-visual work using video samples from Google Video and audio from archive.org. This has nothing to do with the Bohemian Grove or the Illuminati, really. So this was made during the Iraq War, and that's sort of something that, inspired and informed the piece. Also, I was watching a lot of videos on YouTube about the Bohemian Grove. If you've never heard of it, it's something that you could Google. Anyway, I'm just gonna play this.
Spoken through the ages, spoken through the ages, for Psalm 23. Despicable acts of terror. I implemented our government's emergency response plans. Despicable acts of terror. Terrible sadness. Spoken through the ages, for Psalm 23. And on behalf of the American people, I implemented our government's emergency response plans. Despicable acts of terror. Spoken through the ages in Psalm 23.
That's it.
Nice.
I managed to work 23 into it even back then.
Nice. Oh man. I have to ask the significance of the owls. I was trying to parse that out, but I don't think I quite got it.
So Bohemian Grove, if you ever look that up, the sort of mascot of that organization is the owl. And it's kind of a well, let's just see. I hear some weird audio in the background. I don't know if that's me. I don't think it is. Is it?
No, I don't hear anything.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I had the browser open. Yeah, the Bohemian Grove is sort of this. It's actually started as an artist society on the West Coast, and it's this sort of private club where many of the presidents were sort of groomed. Supposedly, Ron Reagan was introduced to all sorts of politicians there when he was, an actor, and it's a men's club apparently that all these industry types kind of would meet up at, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories around it. Our friend Alex Jones actually snuck onto the grounds of Bohemian Grove before he turned into who he is now, and I kind of got some fame from that whole episode. But I think there's a lot of sort of mythology around it. I'm not sure how much of it is really true, but it's pretty interesting from a like a cultural standpoint. But yeah, their owl, the owl is a big part of their sort of iconography. So that's where it comes from. And good old W he never fails to entertain.
Oh God. I think speaking of W from that time, I want to say that there was actually a sculpture that was a monument to the shoe that was thrown at him while he was on air. Like that was a thing that happened. So yeah.
Now he looks pretty tame.
He does, and he himself has gotten into art. Like he's been doing portraiture for the past decade or so, or like maybe 15 years.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So some people are like, maybe he should have just done that all along and maybe not gotten into politics. maybe. Another famous individual probably should have done the same. I'm not going to mention him though.
His dad was a lot more, I think, influential and nefarious.
Yeah.
He was the head of the CIA, I believe, before he was president. George Bush Sr., right?
I think so. Yeah. I think probably a bit more studious as well. But anyway, thank you so much for that. At some point, I would like to get into video and audio work as well, but I don't know when that day will be. Someday. Yeah, does anyone have any questions, comments for Colin? Yes, no, maybe so. Still processing?
I loved it. I thought it was really beautifully done. And it was very interesting. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
It was actually done for a graduate video art class, or it was actually an undergraduate class that I audited and just got to play around. It was mostly done in Final Cut and like that whole suite that I don't think it exists anymore. Motion and Soundtrack Pro. There was a bunch of Apple apps that all worked together.
Colin, I was thinking of the owl as in quotes. The owl represents wiseness, and he always showed up in front of Bush.
Yeah, that's also an interesting
Kind
parallel.
of a satirical touch.
Yeah, I believe he was a member of Bohemian Grove. Pretty sure he was, and many of the presidents were, and sort of a lot of it had to do with sort of maintenance of secrecy. As far as what went on there, at the camp.
The many skull and crossbone societies that we apparently have interspersed with the world, not just this country, but yeah, the private clubs. Anybody else have anything? Yay, nay, maybe.
If you want to get off on these subjects of politics and what have you, this morning I was listening to Amanpour and Company, and in fact I listen to her for my news. She brings in the best people. They were kind of reviewing a book, and the book was, I forget the name, it doesn't really matter, but apparently the humanities is gone out of style big time. Our colleges aren't teaching it anymore. The kids don't want to take it. They just talk about the old guys, the old dead white guys that used to write poetry and, theology, you name it.
Can I confirm as a former philosophy major? Yep. That is what I did.
Right. But it's the best thing to learn. So today I was telling my sister, about this program, and I said, you know what? So it occurred to me that politicians should take more of these courses. And she immediately came and said, ethics.
Yes.
I wonder how many politicians know that word even.
Probably not a whole lot. Not enough anyway.
I rest my case.
Yeah. As much as the humanities are not, they're not viewed as necessarily marketable for the job market, unfortunately, and there's also a lot of confusion. I remember right after graduating, I encountered my first instance of my degree being a problem, because when I said I majored in philosophy, they thought I was talking about psychology. The two are not the same. And it took maybe 10 minutes to explain to them that these are two completely different ideas. And yeah, the interview didn't go well after that, unfortunately. But anyway, Cynthia, were you wanting to present next, or?
Well, like Colin said, we probably could use a few more speakers. I have a few things I can show, and so that's what I thought I'd do.
All right, and I guess I'll go after you because I don't think there's too many other people. I think I scrounged up some stuff.
All right, then I will share. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Right. I too, when thinking about revolution, I think about war, and it brings to mind my participation in the early 70s in the protests against the Vietnam War. And I was always interested in protesting against the government's policy, not against the troops. And here now we are again involved in war, but this time I'm supportive of this war because I think that Ukraine should have its sovereignty, especially since it's been invaded so cruelly. So my only way that I've been able to protest what's happening there was to do some art at that time. And so I will start with the first. What I did was I was seeing all of these things on television. And so I began taking photographs of the television screen. And so the first piece I did was to take, of course, the Ukrainian colors and, of course, the early bombings. As you can see, these buildings are pretty intact. Then I began seeing shots, aerial shots of what was done to buildings and neighborhoods. And I began to take these photographs and again, manipulate them in some of the software apps that I have to, again, show my feeling about how terrible this has been for them. Again, here's another television shot. As you can see in the left-hand corner here, part of the news lineup, mentions Ukraine. And again, I decided to add some color to what was a very dreary scene and make it more electric, if you will, for the fact that it is so terrible. Then I began again taking photographs. In fact, I think the background I ran through an AI app called Wombo, and then began to manipulate another scene that I had from television to create almost a sense of the bombing that occurred. Here's another scene that I had taken a photograph of from the television set and then began manipulating and adding color to. Again, it shows the devastation. And that's the end.
All right. Thank you so much, Cynthia.
You're welcome.
And those look amazing, actually. All right. Does anyone have any questions? Well, the other Cynthia says, wow. Anyone have any questions or comments? Yes, no, maybe.
I would have a question about the kind of how you see the meaning of this process of the imagery, like what you're adding to, or how's that translation work for you? Of taking the photo and working over them.
Well, I think for me, it's somewhat cathartic, and I also get a chance to express something about the devastation that I watch on television very often. So to, I suppose, assimilate it or to come to grips with it, this is what I do. It's I guess, my own form of protest. It's something that I've put on Instagram occasionally. And the thing I feel bad about is I haven't been doing that recently, and yet the war is over a year old, and it's almost, we've become immune to it. And so I think it's, it's something maybe I should revisit, just to get that feeling out there of how I feel about it. There is another Techspressionist, and I can't think of his name right now. Every so often he puts something out about Ukraine to remind the people on social media. I think his name is Robert Trips. And he always ends his comments with, peace in Ukraine, or he mentions other revolutions that are going on right now, like in Iran, regarding women. And so I salute these people who decide to continually beat the drum and, make it clear that this is still going on, and it is an atrocity. People are dying every day. And so I guess working with the images, Andrea, to get back to your question, is in some way, I guess for me, a form of protest.
Thanks.
I want to relate to Cynthia's comments. I appreciate that what you said, because I feel very similarly, and I think I noticed the person's post in Instagram, and I make a concerted effort to follow artists or people, commentators that are speakers or image makers for a variety of locations in the world where people are being impacted by aggression, by war and aggression. So I appreciate your commenting that, and I too feel that a lot of the work I do is always not so particularly exactly from like there's not a linear, there's not a line like this happens and then I make this, but so much of the work that I do is in response to my personal experience in watching what happens to other people in the world. I'll just leave it at that. So thanks for your comment. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you too, Susan.
Anything else for Cynthia?
Yeah, hi, it's Lila Pinto, and I just wanted to add something. Cynthia, that was very beautiful. And, I think expressing solidarity for the people over in Ukraine or wherever it is, parts of the world where, there's strife and suffering, and for us to do something through our art, I think is very meaningful. And I just wanted to share one thing that I had done very early on when, the Ukraine news hit. So there were a group of us artists who mobilized, and, we created paintings, artwork in those yellow and blue, the Ukraine flag colors. And the one thing was we wanted to do something, but we didn't know how to mobilize, because this was when was it? A year and a half ago. And so there were a couple of artists who actually found the address of the government of Ukraine. It was the NFT or the blockchain address. And so we ended up minting our pieces on the blockchain. And there was this big event that was held in the metaverse. There was a gallery, and it was really very nice. But I just wanted to share that that's what I think. There were about 50 artists from around the world. We got together, and we were also very concerned that if we were raising money, we were donating our paintings for this war effort. We wanted to make sure that the money was not going into the wrong hands, like to fund weapons or something like that. And so I just wanted to say it ended up working out really nicely, because the people who found out the address of the government of Ukraine wallet ended up helping all of us. And then we donated our paintings. The money was raised and it went to, again, it was a small thing, because it was, 50 people and clearly they need billions of dollars. But anyway, I just wanted to share that story. And that's one way where using NFTs and using the blockchain, we can, each do our part, especially in times like this. So anyway, thank you. I just wanted to share that.
That sounds like a wonderful project, Lila. And I know, like you said, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's an expression. And that's what matters.
Right.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Lila.
I wanted to add to that because there's also a way to do that for the earthquake victims. I was TES Quake Aid or something like that. One of the pieces I made, the proceeds go to that. And I'm hoping that on the NFT blockchain, there'll be more ways to do that because I find that an effective, possibly effective way to divert funds that that we might have as people that have a bit more than others to places that could use the resources. So thanks for bringing that up about the NFTs.
All right. Thank you so much. I guess might be my turn now. So I guess you can't really have a discussion about revolution and not have some input from one of the few Black minorities in the group. A great deal of my thoughts and feelings actually on a daily basis probably tie back to some sort of revolution or revolutionary thought thinking. My work doesn't always reflect that fact, but when it does, I tend to kind of waffle between two ideas because as an artist that is Black, sometimes there's almost an expectation that people like us are supposed to have our art be about those things. And kind of there's a friction, there's like, I do and I don't, but I don't want to feel obligated to have my work solely be about this. So, you're a Black artist, why doesn't your art feature Black imagery or Black people specifically so much? It's very abstract. That kind of thing happens. But over the past couple of years, since I've really been, re-exploring the ideas of being an artist and the kind of artist I want to be, I definitely kind of touched on, the ideas of revolution and history within, like, as my lived experience of a Black person. So the first couple of works that you'll see, wasn't made as like a collection. This is kind of just like me digging through my stuff as time's gone on. It's kind of a reflection of my thoughts and feelings around those particular time periods. And let me go ahead and so I'm going to start with, I'm actually going to give you guys titles this time because that's not something I always do. All right, you guys you see this red kind of flower looking thing? All right, cool. There's a lot of images here. But I'm going to actually give you titles for the first time, really. This one is called Encroaching. I made this one, I think around November of 2020. Yeah, November 4th, 2020 is when I created this. This was right in the heat of the election cycle that we had. I personally feel the symbolism is more or less clear, but you have the red kind of encroaching upon the blue, which is respective of our two political parties, right? That one's a little more blatant. Then next up, this one's called With Liberty. And this is kind of me poking fun at the libertarian ideology here in this country and how it kind of mixes in with a lot of right-wing conservative ideas, and that there's often a mismatch that libertarians don't readily realize. And that's what that one was about. The next one, this is called The Politic. And there's various colors here that you can see. You have blue, red, this purple region here. And then you have on the fringes, which is kind of respective of what happens, you know, your libertarian thoughts, your Green Party, your actual like communist ideas that are kind of on the fringes of the main kind of focus, which happens to be red and blue here. And then next, one of the few pieces of mine that actually features text. I don't use text a whole lot. This one, let me double check. I created this one January 13th of 2021. So this is right on the heels of the January 6th event. And there was a lot of feelings regarding that. You can see MAGA being kind of highlighted in red here. Certain phrases, make us great, you against us, all lives matter. What else? There's I wrote a lot in here. There's a lot of details within this one. But it was called, this one's title, It's Not All the Same. Following that, you have another kind of text-based piece. This is called The Blue. This was actually excerpts from Joe Biden's inaugural speech. And then to contrast that, you had excerpts from Trump's last speech to the public while he was in office. And I've highlighted, you can see back and forth, there's various pieces that are highlighted. I would zoom in, but I guess that might be later when we have more time. And then there was a piece I created that was a combination of the two, that is called Believe and Hope Again. And that's kind of the primary text here, is that I just want to believe and hope again. Because at that time, there was a very disillusioned feeling that I was going through with our political structure. And it was a different kind of disillusionment that I guess I had experienced before, because, you know, it was, you know, right after January 6th. And it's like things seemed to be crashing in a way that they hadn't quite crashed before. So yeah, that was what that was about. And then moving along from this, on the heels of January 6th and those events, then we had Black History Month. I didn't necessarily tie Black History Month to, you know, the previous works, but this is another piece, features, you know, the Pan-African, or the Garvey colors, the Black Power fist. The text on the side is kind of more or less talking about my feelings about kind of being Black in this country and what's my ties to it and what my experiences have been. Some of these lines are literally from the heart. It's like, I wonder, the way I look and the way I speak, the way that I resemble those that oppressed our people, do I belong? Things like that. So I'm also big on poetry, if you've seen my book of poems. And then there was a series of work after that was kind of in the spirit of the, you know, the Garvey colors. So the red representing the blood of the ancestors, which is what this was called. The green of the flag, which represents the bountiful land that's in Africa. And then the black that is representative of the diaspora as a whole, like the disparate people from Africa that have found themselves all over the world, you know, the ones that ended up in the Americas after the transatlantic slave trade, the ones that were forced to leave and go elsewhere, ended up in parts of Asia, that kind of thing. And another Pan-African piece, I I wish I had more to say about this one, but I can't quite remember what the thought process was when it comes to this one. I called this one Transport. I want to say it was kind of about the idea of, potentially how things were shared and went back and forth between, the land of Africa, which, the green here, and the blood, and how that all mixed together to form the diaspora itself, which is in the center here. Another same kind of concepts. This one was titled Disconnected, which is more respective of my feelings about being a Black person and not necessarily feeling connected to the community, mostly because of my appearance. It's interesting being a exceptionally fair-skinned Black person in this country. I don't think it's something that's readily spoken about, but people like me do exist in a kind of a flux space where, because even light-skinned Black people, like there are light-skinned Black people, like my older sister, she's darker than me, but she has a kind of different social status than me. And where I'm at, it's more akin to people that are actually mixed race. Somebody that has a Black and white parent, even though both of my parents are dark-skinned Black people. So I'm outside of the two boxes that people would want to place me in. And it puts me in a kind of weird spot in relation to the Black community as a whole. This one was titles right there, The Dream Remains a Dream. This was also, again, going on during, the time of the Black Lives Matter protests that were going on. And that was also kind of the backdrop of these images being made, which very much is a revolution in its own right. Started not in 2020, but you can find it more or less being a continuation of ideas and thoughts and feelings from the civil rights movement that have never truly gone away. And speaking of that, this one was actually called Back the Blue. Yeah. The imagery here, I can't quite recall what that was about, but that the title was Back the Blue for this one. And this one wasn't necessarily about revolution, but it was kind of a satire of, at the time, there was a gas crisis that was going on. If you all remember. And I entitled this one American Exceptionalism. Those are gas cans. And then there's more imagery here, kind of about the clash of between our two dominant parties here. This one was titled Constrained. You can see here it's like almost as though the red is strangling the blue here. This was called An Impossible Task. The impossible task being trying to make some sort of cohesive bridge between the two ideologies, and it just being flimsy, not very substantial, like seemingly very superficial. This here was called Lip Service, which speaks to kind of the idea that oftentimes it's the case that the Democratic Party likes to claim that it is on the side of, minorities, Black people, and, the working class, but in practice, it doesn't seem like that's the case for the majority of them, unfortunately. So it feels like empty words more often than not. This one's called The Wall, which was play on Trump's idea of, the wall being built and just how uncomfortable that whole idea is. This was about, this is called We Know Fear and Use It. So this is more about the Republican Party, or at least not even necessarily the Republican Party so much as a lot of right-wing conservative media seems to pride itself and use fear as a motivator more so than a connector of any kind. Recently, we know that Fox News itself actually came out and talked about, how they spread lies on purpose because they wanted viewership and that's what people were looking for. So they weren't going to lose to more radical right-wing places, so they played into that whole idea. So this one is kind of prescient on that because this was made before the whole that whole defamation suit came out. This was made back in 2021, so summer 2021. And then we have here kind of me poking fun at the back of the blue flag and making it into like the Pan-African flag. Similarly, same kind of concept went into my thinking with this one. Two kind of symbols or two ideas that often get used by people that like to criticize the Black Lives Matter movement or civil rights movements and that kind of thing. This one, the first one here, sorry, let me go back. This one is titled Back the Black, and this one is entitled Southern Heritage. It's kind of tongue-in-cheek. And then we have some more recent works of mine that the work is less about the art. Hold on. Sorry. It's less about the arts and more about the message that I'm trying to convey here. There's mostly just text here, but the revolution or conflict of race as an idea is something that is on my mind a lot. Because if you think about the history of race, or about the history of race, not just in this country, but globally, and then look at this country after knowing that, and how the idea of things like Black and white developed here, you realize that that was a major deviation to how the world had been before. Like the way that the United States did race is very different than even how Britain was currently doing race. And so there was a series of works I was working on that was kind of pointing out the absurdity of the ideas of race in the United States. So this one was this one I got a little bit more creative with the titles. I had fun with the titles. This one is titled "We Didn't Make the Game or the Rules, but We Have No Choice But to Play." If I need to elaborate on that further, I will. This one is called "Real Patriots Fighting to Make America Great." These are excerpts from various news clippings from when the 15th Amendment was passed, to events that transpired shortly after that happening, and kind of that contrast of we made it, but at the same time these atrocities are still happening. So you have the news up here, and the irony of the calling it shame when it was kind of, that was how things were. It's like, you can't really call something shame that the majority of a group was more or less okay with. And I say it was a majority of the times because you didn't really necessarily see too much of a pushback against it. It's like they were talking about it, but it's like nothing was actually done with this shameful act, so to speak. This one was titled, "One of These is Apparently More Offensive Than the Other." And I also threw in that famous quote from Trump, "Good people on both sides." Kind of that difference there. And this is a piece of history here. So during World War II, actual Nazis that were prisoners of war here actually had more rights than Black Americans, Black veterans here in the United States. And that was kind of just a jab at that, because these Nazi prisoners of war could actually go see movie theaters in public at the white movie theaters. Black people could not enter those buildings. So it was that kind of that idea that there was a different status even for some of the people that historically we deem as the most deplorable individuals, and they still got better treatment than Black people. So it's like, about that. This one is called My Ancestors Were Unprofessional. If you did not know, it was not until very recently that Black people's hair was deemed not something you could discriminate over in hiring practices. So there's a whole history of Black people and their hair, it necessarily needing to be straightened in order to fit in and look professional in order to get jobs or be afforded the same kind of respect in a lot of places. Yeah. There's a lot there, and my own hair, I'm sure this is my hair currently being the way it is would still make some people that are in higher positions like apprehensive, because a lot of our hair is still, even though legally they're not allowed to discriminate against it, legality and what people actually do aren't necessarily the same thing. It's like discrimination can still happen. They'll just say it's something else. It's like, oh, it's not that we don't like your hair, we just don't think you'd be a good fit. But in their back of their mind, it's like, no, I didn't like this person because I didn't think they fit the image that I'm looking to have. This one is called If We Took the One Drop Rule as Seriously as Apparently, it's a long title. If we took the one drop rule as seriously as apparently many of us would, you would be fucked. And that's kind of pointing at the absurdity of the one drop rule about being Black in this country, and how that whole notion was just an exceptionally absurd practice, because you can't measure how Black somebody is. You can't just be like, oh yeah, you're half Black. Well, what does that mean? Or you're 3/4 Black. What does that mean? Because if you look at a person's ancestry, you'll see that it's mixed with a whole lot of different things, and it's just, yeah. And so the idea here is that apparently one drop of a Black person's blood into a sea of white genes makes that person Black. But the same can't be said in reverse. A person that is white, that, you know, has a child with somebody that isn't white, that other person doesn't get the same status as a white person. That's not a thing. They are more the class of the other person, right? This one, no text on this one, but this is called Gotta Make It Good Enough for the White Gaze, which speaks to the history of blackface in this country, and how Black people in entertainment weren't really a thing until the minstrel shows started and white people started donning blackface. But what people don't know is that there were actually Black people that were donning blackface in order to get the right to be able to perform on stages and do music and dance, because that's what white people were expecting performance-wise. So these people weren't even allowed. There were Black people that weren't even allowed to perform unless they were in blackface, which is, yeah, that not very good. So that's where that idea comes from. This one is titled "Both of These Cards are Bad Apparently," and people keep both of these cards are bad apparently, and people keep coming for one of them. And this is more about me specifically, because I have often at times found myself people trying to get me to prove my Blackness, but also at the same time not willing to accept that some things are different because I'm Black, and will accuse me of pulling the race card. So I have these two cards that apparently I'm not allowed to use. Then we have this, which is, this one's called Black Man by Law Only, kind of. And this is kind of pointing at the legal, or just highlighting the legal definition of what race is in the United States. The Designation of persons by race, color, and national origin is required. Following designation shall be used. Black, not of Hispanic origin. A person having origins in any Black racial groups of Africa. What is a Black racial group? And then white is somebody having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe. Who exactly are the original peoples of Europe? That's it. As you can, like, it's a very, on its nose, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But when you really think about it beyond that surface level, it's like, that doesn't actually mean anything. Like, this is a very flimsy kind of nonsensical definition. And this was, this is called Black Coded, but you talk white. And this was kind of about the fact that there was a lot of laws that still are on the books that are literally racially motivated or have racial motivations when they're created. That's the whole idea about what systemic racism is and that bias. We kind of have these old laws that were in the books that were racially motivated that yeah, they're still there, still dealing with and trying to like deal with that. And then there's kind of some programming humor here. If you are a programmer of any kind, the bottom out here is see out racism. That's kind of the code for when you want to display an output visually in C. And then up here you have the double hash here. That's a comment. So the comment is Negro blood question mark, which when we actually had things called black codes at one point. That was part of the Jim Crow era. And that's kind of what's also the double play of black coded is talking about too. So you had layers here, like an onion or an ogre. And then another, I think this is the last one. Yeah, this is the last one. The pointing out the absurdity of the idea of biracial. When you look up or try to find out the idea of what biracial is, person or parents have ancestors from different racial or ethnic backgrounds, or concerning members of two racial groups. But if you actually think about it, like your parent, like I was saying before, you don't have neatly, in most cases, or at least with Black people in this country anyway, we don't neatly have like a strictly binary ancestry. Like they're like, I could probably find Native American, German, all sorts of ethnic groups that are within me, and part of the reason why I look the way I do. So the idea of even biracial kind of doesn't make sense. And mixed race is, again, speaking to that, like you just, it's more accurate to say that, but at the same time, what we understand race, at least in this country, it doesn't make sense. And then this was just a little joke. The swirl is kind of a euphemism for what happens when what you call white people getting together. It's called the swirl. And I've spoken far too long, so that's that. Stop sharing. Yeah, I know that was a lot, and I like spent the entire like 20 so minutes going through that, but there was a lot.
It was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Davo.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to, or some of the stuff that I've been working on in and out over the past, I guess, 3 years at this point, because some of those go back to 2020.
It was awesome, but it's also very unfair for someone to say to you, oh, where's your, show me why your art is Black, or where is your Blackness or your heritage in your art. People don't, I would go as far as to say that's racist. People don't go to a white person and say, show me the whiteness in your art. So to go to an artist and say your heritage is X, so we need to see something from your heritage in there, is it's I can see why it would happen, but it's not really thinking things through, and your art is you and it's wonderful. So I'm going to shut up.
It's all right. Thank you.
I think that was an amazing, almost, well, I can't quite describe it, but so intuitive of you and so worked out. A lot of knowledge. I really appreciate that, and I can understand very well why you were concerned.
Yep.
Yeah, that's like, actually you should have two race groups to belong to, instead of you thinking you have one or none. You have
Yeah.
two. Definitely
I mean,
have two, at least from my point of view.
it is a social construct, and what we know about social constructs is that oftentimes they seem arbitrary, but they do end up serving a purpose. But at the same time, maybe adjust how we understand it. All right.
Have you read Sapiens?
Not yet. I
Yeah.
think that is on my list.
Yeah, make it top for your list. You're really gonna love it. It's a great book.
So I just want to say the use of text was really powerful.
Mhm.
And I felt that because the gestures, the movement, you can almost feel like when you said, well, this is a swirl, but in fact, that kind of motion was happening in different ways, or gestures were happening in the imagery all the way through. And then the juxtaposition with the text was really amazing. I mean, you just explored having gestural text and then having typed text and different ways of putting that together. And I think there's such a rich exploration. I hate to say rich because that's kind of a trait way. And I'm multi-layered. I can't come up with the right thing. There's just a lot of different ways of expressing those juxtapositions and the way that they work together. So I found that really powerful and inspiring.
Thank you.
Doing that. Are you putting these into a book, or are you thinking them as single or whatever? I did notice, by the way, before I let you answer, that the colors that you used are colors that are not easily printable, the red and blue. So,
Yep. I'm aware.
Yeah. So they have to be works that are best seen online. And this was a perfect time. Great viewing experience for us. Okay, now I'm going to shut up and let you answer.
No, it's all right. Whether or not I'm going to put it in the book, I'm not sure. The last 10 that you saw, the ones that were all black that had the text and stuff written on it, those are the first 10 of a series of about 20 that I'm going to be doing. The next 10 will focus more on the imagery more so than the text. But what I'm going to do with it after that, I have no idea. I have no idea yet. It's just it was coming out as a result of a conversation I had with a friend of mine where we were talking about those same kind of subjects, and he was like, you should do an art series about that. And I was like, maybe I will. And that's how that happened.
This could be in a book that's used in language arts classes. because it's stuff you can talk about. You can see and feel the art, and then with the text in it and an explanation, you can understand it more, and people can talk about it and your experience and your journey.
Yep.
This would make a great book.
Oh, thank you. I will definitely keep that in mind. Lila, sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to say that was really very beautiful and very moving. I too thought that your use of text really helped explain a lot. But then, of course, hearing you was the best part because we could hear kind of your personal experience. And I have to say, as an artist myself, I often do not like to I hate doing video. I'm getting better about speaking about my art. But now when I see what you're doing, it just brings the whole thing to life. And I was very moved by that.
Thank you.
So it was also inspiring and encouraging for someone like myself. And the funny thing is, I'm very extroverted. Colin has met me at the Southampton Arts Center. I'm very extroverted in real life, but it's just when it comes to being on video or talking about my art or myself, I can talk up a storm if it's something else. But if
Right.
it's speaking about myself or my experience, whatever, it's just related to art. I just have a hard time. So thank you for doing this. And maybe one of these days I'll talk about my experience and
Maybe.
my work.
I will say two things probably helped me in that regard.
Yes.
Going to therapy, because you have to talk about yourself in therapy. So you have to get comfortable talking about yourself in it. But also streaming in general, like doing live broadcasts on social media, that can also help you get comfortable with, speaking when there might not even necessarily be an audience, but you get in the habit of, just being able to speak in front of the camera.
Thank you. So actually, I've been on Twitter Spaces a little bit lately to talk about my NFTs, and that has been really good practice.
Yep.
Because just audio and people are very supportive. But on a side note, I just wanted to share, back to your story, something that is making the news in media right now. I don't know how many of you have been following the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank.
Yep.
Right. So the most outrageous thing that I read, other than everything else, and I'll just give you 30 seconds about my background. So I have a finance background. So I'm very much out there in terms of like in the public. I can talk, like I said, I'm in sales. So I'm very comfortable in the real world. And then again, I'm selling the product of my firm, not myself. So it's very different. But I'm also just showing my art, and on Instagram, I'm very comfortable doing that. But back to the Silicon Valley, and I've been following that story, obviously because of my finance background, but the Wall Street Journal, the journalist, his last name is Kessler, he stated something outrageous. He said that the reason for the bank's decline was because of diversity.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
That is the most outrageous thing. It's mismanagement. It's so many things, but not because of a diverse board. So I just wanted to share that. So that is the most ludicrous thing. And the ex-Goldman Sachs CEO just was on the news lately, and he also said this is like ridiculous that someone like the Wall Street Journal would write something like this. But I just wanted to share that with you. So. Yeah. This level of ludicrousness about color and race and gender. I mean, it's like we're in this day and age. Come on, this is 2023, and this nonsense is still occurring.
Yeah.
Like this is unacceptable. Like we're all intelligent, well-read individuals. Like what is going on?
Well, I can say that when you get down to it, like. There's a reason for everything, and some of those reasons can definitely be traced back to money, unfortunately. Things being the way that they are is still more profitable than trying to fix it. So that's kind of where we are.
Yeah, but anyway, with the Wall Street Journal editor, like writer, stating something like that was just just shows the depths of what should I say, lack of awareness and everything else.
Right.
It's so systemic.
Yep.
Yeah. And he was talking about, I didn't go into all the details, but I think there was one LGBTQ person on the board. There was women. So it was across the board. He was like, so anyway, enough said, but just wanted to pass that along. Anyway, I have to jump, but thank you so much for hosting this, and really such a pleasure, and goodbye to everyone. And
thanks for coming.
Thank you. Bye-bye. You're welcome.
Bye. And on that note, actually, we should probably be wrapping up anyway, because we are past the time because I talked too much. I want to thank everyone for coming and being in attendance and sitting through my long spiel about my work, probably the longest I've probably talked about in a minute. And I want to also thank you for giving time and appreciation to the other presenters here, not just myself, because I'm not selfish. And just for making this community what it is, and as welcoming, as kind and supportive as it is. So thank you again for that as well. And with that, I guess we can go ahead and sign off. So,
and thank you, Davo, for moderating, and it's great to have you back as a moderator and also sharing your work. It's awesome to see, and always enjoyable, and definitely get a lot out of it. So definitely it's important for you to come in here and represent, dude, along with any other minorities that come in here, and I mean, it's not all about that, obviously, but like without that, it's like, what is it? So yeah.
Yep. All right, do I go ahead and count us off?
Yeah, why not? And you guys are all welcome to hang out afterwards. We will definitely be picking a topic for next salon, which is in 2 weeks. I actually will not be present because I'll be traveling, but I'll leave it to all you good folks to keep the show going. So yeah, you want to count us down?
All right. And we are signing off in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and that's a wrap.